right, I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara School Board of Education, and we will begin by rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Matsuoka.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches, apreciamos su presencia. Tenemos los aparatos disponibles para escuchar la interpretación a español. Si es que no los tienen, está uno en la mesa y ya tenemos más. Gracias.
Thank you. And we also have headsets available for the hearing impaired at the side table here, if anybody needs those. And now we will move on to item C5, the superintendent's report.
So we have 3 students here tonight that we are so excited to recognize. They entered some of their various literary works in a contest. It was the Martin Luther King Essay and Poetry Contest for 2017. And so we'd like to begin by inviting Stella Shem, and she won first place for poetry for ages 6 through 12, and we're going to invite her to read her poem. So Stella, if you want to go up to the microphone up there, and let's give her a welcome.
Another shade of human. One day, we will see the sunrise at the end of a dark, moonless night. One day, we will see that sunrise at the end of our perilous fight. One day. When that one day comes, there will be no boundaries dividing us. When it doesn't matter what color my hand is, we will see that morning light. One day. The war has not ended yet. We are merely fighting another battle. A battle fought with words, not actions. A battle fought with hope and strength. A battle fought with open arms and kindness. One day, we will finish building our tunnel. A tunnel to connect us, bring us together, keep us together. That day starts with me and you and any and everyone that wants to see that sunrise. Through love, hope, and kindness, we will take the lead weights off our wings and soar to a place where the hatred and bitterness will not reach us. I will raise a glass of hope to love, kindness, and freedom. And even though there are those who have done bad, that doesn't mean they are heartless monsters. No, we are all human, and human we all are. We are all human and capable of making mistakes and doing wrong. That doesn't mean we can't do right. I want to see that sunrise, and I want to watch it with people who can and will do right. We will only reach that day, only see that sunrise, if we can put aside our differences and petty disputes and start to see every unique skin color as simply just another shade of human. I've decided to stick with love.
Thank you, Stella.
And Stella, you can stay up front because we're going to take a picture with all 3 of the students. You know, Stella, we really need those words right now in our country, so thank you for writing that.
Stella, actually, if you want to come stand here, that's great. Yep.
We'd also like to recognize Michelle Chin from Dos Pueblos High School for first place for essay for ages 13 through 18. Congratulations, Michelle. No. And our third recognition is Alana Sanchez, and she's a student at Roosevelt Elementary School. Recognition for first place in essay for ages 6 through 12. Congratulations, Alana.
And while our winners are pausing for this photo opportunity as all these cameras come out, I just want to remind parents that this will be shown on Channel 18 at 5 o'clock on Saturday if you actually want to see this on TV. But it will also be available on the district website in just a few days. So you can share that with friends and family that live in other locations. Thank you. That was wonderful, and congratulations to all 3 of you.
My other comment was just how peaceful it was across our district last Friday. We had sent out some communication just about the inauguration day, and we were wondering how things would transpire in Santa Barbara Unified. I think the rain helped a lot. In fact, if you recall, it was pouring that day, so I think most students just wanted to get their schoolwork done and head home and keep dry. But we're appreciative that our students were safe that day, and we look forward to the work ahead. So, thank you.
And moving us on now to announcement of closed session action. We did not take action in closed session. We will have some student discipline and readmissions that we will be taking action on in open session. That brings us to item C7, board comments and correspondence. Board members, is there anything that you would like to share at this time? Dr. Reed.
I just wanted to make it a point that it's really wonderful. I know they've left, they had to go home, but to bring student voices to the board meeting and voices from the students across the district. So we really want to acknowledge that they were here, and I also want to acknowledge the Anti-Defamation League and the Martin Luther King Committee for their collaboration together to bring the students forward in this exercise to be thinking about the important issues that Martin Luther King brought forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Capps.
I had the honor of attending my first school wellness committee meeting this last couple of weeks, and the focus was I was as a first-time member of this committee, I was struck by the breadth of people who were there: teachers, administrators, physical education teachers. It was a healthy-sized group, maybe 30, 40 people. And the focus was on mental wellness, and we heard from the mental wellness volunteers who are active in the sixth grades, dozens of sixth grades, with a mental wellness curriculum that was very impressive. We actually did the curriculum ourselves to sort of get a sense of what the students in sixth grade are doing, including the mental health breathing that is so important for us all. So that's Ann Lippincott and Christy Morse, a former teacher, who are doing this as volunteers. And so it was very refreshing and assuring to know that our sixth graders are getting this kind of education.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move to C8. This is public comments on non-agenda matters within jurisdiction of the Board of Education, and I believe we have a number of speakers.
We do have a number of speakers, so I will call out the first three names so you will know when to come up. And you will have 20 seconds. I'll give you a 20-second warning so that you have that to know when you need to stop. So we will start with Anna Rico, Eva Inbar, and Blanca.
And
Oh, you know what, they can have, you can go together as a group, but it can only be 3 minutes or 6
Okay.
minutes with translation,
Okay.
just, you know.
So this is Narci and Blanca and Ana Rico. I'm here because the path at Cleveland where we walk, the path is really dangerous. Like when the strollers or the kids, they're on their bikes, the gravel is falling apart already. Now they put like a red fence, like plastic fence with bags for the rain. So now for us who have kids with our strollers, it's really complicated to get up there. We have to be there at 8:20 for the school to start. And there's times where we're trying to all walk in little line, but we're so crowded in there. So that's the reason why we're here, to see if you could help us out. We had originally pictures, but we couldn't show it in the slide. So next time that we come, I'll laminate the pictures so you guys to see them. But that's really why we're here, because we need help with that. If you guys could come and see it for yourselves, you'll see that it is a little complicated to walk up that way.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will have Narci. Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. My mistake.
Good evening. I'm Eva Inbar, and I'm with Coast Safe Routes to School project. I'm the president there currently. We ensure that kids have safe routes to school throughout this region, and I'm here to support these women here, these moms, in their request for a safe footpath to Cleveland School. I was out there myself. I was frankly appalled. It's full of sinkholes. It's eroding fast. It's an urgent need of repair, and it'll only get worse. It is on district property. We found that out. So it is your responsibility, and we're hoping that you will be able to include it in the spending plan for your new measure that you expect. I think it's an urgent need. It's hundreds of kids and their parents that use this path each day. It's their primary pedestrian access to the school from Salinas Street. So it is a matter of real urgency here and of safety too. I think it's a liability to have these sinkholes right in the path, even if you have orange fencing around it. It really doesn't cut it. So there are moms with strollers and so forth. They're also walking it in the dark because there are often evening classes at the school and there's absolutely no light. So when you work on it, I implore you, please include some lights there so that these people don't have to walk in the dark. And there really is no alternative path for them to get to the school on foot. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that you'll be able to address the problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And our last speaker, Narcy?
She was one of the three.
Oh, she was one of the three. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
There you
That
go.
made
Just
things simple. Thank you so much. All right. That moves us to item DA, the acceptance of donations for January 24th, 2017.
I make a motion that we accept the donations with gratitude.
And I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passed unanimously. This moves us to the consent agenda. Does any board member have any item or items to pull?
I asked to move to pull D12.
D12, okay. Any others to pull? Then can I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved. Motion to approve the remaining.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Sims-Moten and seconded by Mr. Ulloa. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passed unanimously. Now for item E12, Mr. Ulloa, do you want that, can we talk about that now, or do you need to have that for discussion at the end of the meeting? Okay. And that brings us to the action agenda. And that is item F1, board action on student discipline in case number 2016-17-18.
All right, in case number 2016-17-18, I move to accept the expulsion with enforcement suspended for 1 school year, which ends June 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. F2, board action on a petition for readmission of an expelled student. This is case number 2015-16-34.
In the case of number 2015-16-34, I move to accept the re-entry from full expulsion for 1 school year ended on January 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Item F3, board action on a petition for readmission of an expelled student. This is case number 2015-16-45. And let me correct myself, we're on item F. Are we on F3 or F4 at this point? 3? Okay, so this is case number 2015-16-37.
In the case of 2015-16-37, I move to accept the re-entry from full expulsion for 1 school year that ended on January 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. And now on to F4. This is case number 2015-16-45, petition for readmission of an expelled student.
In the case of 2015-16-45, I move to accept the re-entry from full expulsion for 1 school year that ended on January 2017.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item F5, this is the approval of projects and priorities for Measure I 2016 and Measure J 2016. Ms. Chate.
Yes, I'm going to have Mr. Hent-Yonk come up and start us off here.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, members of the board. We're presenting tonight our plan for projects and priorities, a roadmap, shall we say, for measures I and J. The first thing I want to stress is that anything that you approve tonight is not set in stone. The board has the discretion at any time to modify or change the plan for projects and priorities. So this is by no means the last time that you'll be asked to make decisions on these proposals. If we want to start with Measure I, your attachment has the projects and priorities listed two different ways. One is by an anticipated 3 different sale of bonds, and one is to show the projects at each site. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on each of these lists, anything that we did not make clear, and anything that questions you may have on how we arrived to our proposals.
Yeah, I was hoping you could review, especially since this is something that the voters voted on, the prioritization process, how these made the list as opposed to other projects.
We looked at a number of factors. We looked at our facilities master plan. As part of the bond campaign, replacement of old portable classrooms was a priority. We looked at aging infrastructure, which is becoming critical and in need of repair for safety of the buildings and safety of students and staff, and kind of meshed those requirements. In the first set of projects, we also included sites that have eligibility for state matching funds. With the passage of Proposition 51, we have numerous projects sitting up there that have already been completed, waiting for funding. We also have eligibility for projects that we haven't completed yet, and getting those designed, and a notice of award and a notice to proceed to the contractor means that we can then move those forward with the state and get in line for matching funds, so we're eligible to ask for those when they are released over a period of time.
And in terms of time frame, does that year 1 mean immediately? For example, the pool deck replacement, that would be starting when?
Years one.
Or phase 1, rather.
Yeah. Phase 1 would be the first sale of bonds.
Okay.
Actually, that's.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, phase 1 is the first sale of bonds, but these phases on this chart are the actual years. We have a master spreadsheet, and on that spreadsheet, we have a column for inflation. And so the year associated with this, starting with year 1 through year 6, would be the anticipated year that the project is complete, because we need to account for inflation from the time we decide we want to do the project till the time we actually have the funds available to assign architects, design, and complete the project. So on the second sheet, we can go to the next page. Oh, for Measure I, I'm sorry. See. That's it. Yeah. So on this sheet, these phases are not the 1 through 6, but these phases would be the 1, 2, 3 for corresponding with the 3 anticipated bond sales. So that may be a little confusing. The phases don't match up on the 2 charts. So the first chart was the actual anticipated year, figuring a 6 to 7 year program, and these would be phase 1 projects would be projects that we propose to fund and accomplish out of the first sale of bonds.
Any other questions, board members? I appreciate that. I was wondering why it went to 6 when I was talking about phases, but I was really meaning year, and it's year of completion, so it could be that it starts earlier, but that's something might take longer than 1 year to finish.
Actually, the year in which we anticipate construction to start.
Oh, to start. Okay, I get it. One thing that, I would I think I noticed it more on the secondary list than on the elementary list. And one of the things I really appreciate is both that we had a facilities master plan so that we could hit this fast, but and it wasn't just the new master plan, it was also all of the backlog of work. It was the maintenance master plan, so to speak, that's been really key in being able to put this together fast. And so I appreciated that. We have disparities in needs between the schools in terms of facilities work. And I was wondering, is there any, I mean, I know that the principals have all seen what needs to be done at their schools over multiple years at this point. But is that something that we need to be concerned about, that, for example, Santa Barbara Junior High has so many more needs? That we'll have to spend twice as much money to upgrade that school as we would at one of the other junior highs, for example.
Right. All the schools are not in the same condition.
Right.
And if I can just point out an example, we have a lot of these boiler projects at the beginning. We are being required by the Air Pollution Control District to replace some of the older boilers that do not meet the current emission standards. And so we want to accomplish that in the first sale because of a regulatory requirement.
Okay.
And some of the other projects, like I say, state matching funds, we also looked at safety and critical infrastructure, things that we anticipate could fail first, and some things are semi-critical that will last a few more years that we can wait on. Had communication with some principals about projects, but most of the input came from the facility master plan and the needs assessment.
Okay. And a couple other questions on that in terms of the needs assessment. One thing that we've learned in the past is that it's quite, it's positive to have a quick punch list of things that we can get started that might not be one of these major projects, but a small project or a smaller project, like, for example, fixing a footpath to a school that could probably be done pretty quickly. Are you talking with principals about that?
Yes, in fact, when we get to the Measure J list, you'll see a footpath there. I have a proposal on my desk, and it will be brought forward for the next board meeting.
Fantastic. That's good to hear. Ms. Sims-Moten.
Thank you. So with regards to the state matching funds, are they already available, or do we have to apply for those?
We have established eligibility for those funds, and so in the design process, we'll submit our designs to the Department of the State Architect, get them approved, then submit them in Sacramento to the Office of Public School Construction and the State Allocation Board. Then once they approve them, then we get on the list. Now we're in line with every school district in California waiting for the state to release funds, and when it's our turn and they get to us at certain projects, we then say, okay, send us the money. We've already started the project. We've given the contractor a notice to proceed. And typically, when that happens, we see the money in the county treasury within 60 days.
So
the state has told us that they're going to not release all the money at once. They'll be releasing it slowly and passing it out slowly. So our goal for projects that aren't already in line is to get them in line as soon as possible to maximize the money we have as a district by trying to gain those state matching funds.
So, for instance, the one that it's SBHS, the boiler replacement, also has to do with regulatory. So would that wait until we get approved by the state, or we're going to go ahead and?
We'll go ahead and do the project. Then once the state reimburses us, that money comes into our fund, our capital funds, and then the board can use that money as it sees fit. It can apply it towards the boiler project in theory and free up those Measure I funds for other projects. But it's an accounting type procedure, when in actuality you've already spent the money, so when they give you the matching money, it frees up money to spend on another project. And hopefully will increase the amount of money we have for our projects for the whole campaign.
And I just wanted to add one thing that, the state did pass, or the taxpayers did, or the community of the state of California passed a bond, a $5 billion bond, but there hasn't been one in 10 years. So there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of projects out there that are waiting in line for this money too. That's why we put all of the state matching fund eligibility projects in the first phase to try to get our money on the table as quick as possible.
And just one more comment with regards to getting back the matching funds and having the flexibility. So are we also looking at perhaps putting that in a capital fund for overruns or projects with regards to inflation? So how are we able to use that as well?
It will increase your ending fund balance that you can assign as you see fit for the needs of the district. So on these, at the bottom of the list, you'll see a unassigned dollar amount. If we've received $5 million, your remaining balance would be $8,800,000, and the board would have discretion then on how to spend that money.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Capps?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about sustainability and energy efficiency with these new projects. Something I heard quite a bit in the lead up to the passage of this bond was an interest in the opportunity with the building of new buildings and what that represents here as a district in terms of really being state-of-the-art and advanced when it comes to solarizing potentially or energy efficiency. So if you could speak to any plans that are underway, especially as it pertains to the portables that are being replaced with permanent buildings.
Okay. At the current time, the Division of State Architect has guidelines on energy efficiency and sustainability that all of our architects must follow. In addition to that, we always have discussion with our architects about how our utilities affect our general fund and how we want our buildings to be as efficient as possible, so our general fund costs for those items are at a minimum that they can be over the period of years. We are, as part of our budgeting process, we have budgeted currently our portable replacements using the modular construction cost model. So if the district decides not to use that model, then we need to come back and have a future discussion about budgets and costs. But for the purposes of what we've done so far, we had to make a decision on which way to budget, knowing that we may have to make an adjustment. Those modular buildings can and are designed in the future to have photovoltaic panels added to them, but they are not included in the current costs. That'd be a discussion that we could have and the board could give us direction.
Okay, well, I know that Title 24, every new building has to be so-called solar ready, correct? So they would be satisfying that building code?
I haven't heard the term solar ready in Title 24. I'd have to talk to the architects about that requirement, but the modular buildings that we are proposing do easily support the addition of photovoltaic solar panels.
Great. And just another comment is that I know that just the whole process of getting estimates is a no-cost process, as far as I understand from other arenas. So it might be something, that at least the exploring of it would not be a budgetary endeavor.
Correct. Well, it would be a small budgetary outlay depending on what type of study the board wanted us to proceed with, but it wouldn't be anything near the total design cost to start with to get some estimates for you.
Thank you.
I have a couple more questions. First, following on that, just on the portable as being replaced by modular classrooms, you had listed in there that it was something like I think it was like 50-50 or something like that. I can't remember what my notes were on that. 5 modulars for every 4 stick-built. And I was just wondering, how did you come up with that?
The approximate square foot cost for construction of a modular building is approximately $400 a square foot, and the approximate square foot cost generically for a traditional, we call them stick-built, but they're really steel studs and concrete, is about $500 a square foot. So you can, that's where we came up with that ratio.
Okay. And the one other question I had, I saw, of course, window replacement has been a huge thing at our historic buildings. I see those on the list at a little bit later in the phases, but definitely there. When you talk about boiler replacement, so Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High, I think, are the only 2 remaining schools that are using boilers and radiators?
McKinley.
And McKinley. Okay, so those, when you talk about boiler replacement, are you talking about boiler replacement, or are you talking about new HVAC systems that would get rid of the radiators?
we are talking about replacing the boiler itself and the piping and modifying the radiators to accept hot water instead of steam.
Okay.
And that requires a different type of boiler that uses less energy and produces less pollutants into the air.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Capps?
Just on the same, back to my other topic of efficiency, I know that with it, building on the state fund, the district has done a good job, at least it seems, to access Prop 39 funds for energy efficiencies for schools. Are there those sort of plans underway for this new construction?
Yeah, we would instruct our designers to use LED lighting whenever possible, energy efficient recycled building materials to be as green as possible where feasible. We'd like our buildings to use the least amount of energy as possible, and a lot of that is association, how you associate the building with the sun and daylighting and things like that the architects are much more an expert at than I am.
Great, but in terms of funding for that, seeking out state funds that are available for that kind of, specifically for energy efficiency at schools?
There may be a bonus for your design based on energy efficiency, but that would be a bonus for the existing state matching funds. At this time, the state has not announced a program specifically for funds, specifically for future energy projects that we could apply for.
Okay.
Just a point of reference, Prop 39 money for energy is for retrofitting existing conditions.
Thank you.
So we can't use Prop 39
For new buildings.
on new buildings.
I didn't understand that. Thanks for that explanation. Thanks.
All right, board, if there are no further questions on this, we do need some action here with the understanding that, as Mr. Hetjonk said, that this list is not set in stone and we will have unexpected needs come up.
Do you want to get an overview of the elementary list?
Oh, sure, I forgot. We've been sort of talking about it very broadly, but let's look at elementary too.
I put them as two separate motions to give you leeway of however you wanted to address them. Again, for the elementary, on here you see, now this one's, we have year instead of phase, but basically year 1 through 6 for adjustments for inflation. Same type of process, facility master plan, needs assessment, critical infrastructure, state matching funds, all of the same criteria in selecting and prioritizing projects was used. And Cleveland, there is replace walkways, year 1 as a proposal.
I asked Brian if he would queue up a Google satellite image in case you haven't actually walked that pathway. And there it is.
So it's that sort of slightly diagonal walk that,
it's
okay,
a straight
that's what you're
line
circling
pathway. And it's kind of steep. I forget what the street is down at the base. Salinas.
Well, but there's a little connector. Is that a street or another pathway?
So it actually dumps down and it connects at Clifton Street, and then it goes all the way up to the top of Cleveland. And it's pretty long.
Question mark for Mr. Hetjonk on that one in particular. If you're redoing it, do we need to worry about ADA issues?
That project will probably not require Division of State Architect approval. There is some structural reconstruction, but I don't believe it's to the point that would have to be submitted. We will address, as part of that project, some drainage issues, and our maintenance department is already addressing getting some of the lighting back up and running prior to this taking place.
So there was lighting there?
There was existing poles that we're working with.
Good, great. Any Ms. Sims-Moton?
I just had a question with regards to, I think, your summary, where the fiscal impact is $56,000 on your summary? And I was just trying to figure out what that was for. It's actually probably on your staff report. Is it 56 million? So I'm just, with regards to McKinley, a fire alarm?
Oh, the fire alarm. That's That is a project that's later on the agenda that I'm proposing for Measure R money instead of Measure J,
Oh, okay.
with remaining Measure R funds.
Okay, I was ahead of myself. Thank you.
Ms. Capps?
Just a general question on communication. What's the sort of thought process about how often we'll be updated as a board, which means the public as well?
Well, I'll give you the generic answer as often as you'd like to be. But our goal is for you not to have surprises as projects move forward. We'll ask you for architectural assignments, for assignments of construction managers. As we get into design development, if there's any change in the budgets, we come forward to let you know that we have excess money, or we'd ask for more money to increase the budget. You would be involved at the contract award phase, and we would give periodic reports on where we are with our funds, how much has been encumbered, what the project's plans are, and also you would receive the reports of the bond oversight committees that will be meeting quarterly, and there'll be a nice clear update on where we are on each project. So we can give you information in as much detail and as often as you would like.
Thank you. And then for the public, I mean, I believe, we need to be very mindful that a lot of people went to the polls and supported this. And I'm just wondering what sort of measures you all take as an administration to inform teachers, parents, et cetera, the public, when a new project is starting, that these are, I mean, everything's public funds, but these are especially public funds in the sense that this is a reflection of the will of the voters. And so communicating that, I think, is also very helpful.
Right. Every project involves involvement with the school administration
Sure.
as far as timing and letting them know way in advance what type of disturbance they can expect and for how long. And then we answer any questions that we've attended PTA meetings, we've attended teacher meetings. All of our bond oversight committee information is always posted on our website. And so we try and make as much available to the public and everybody else that wants to access any information.
But any sort of outward signs that this is a project,
Typically, for every bond project, we have put up signs, thank you taxpayers, these projects are taking place. Barbara Kiani was a champion in making sure those were all done correctly and on time.
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable piece of communication with the public, to understand the connection between what they supported at the polls to now seeing it in action and knowing that that actually did occur. So
Absolutely.
thanks to
All the positive
I'm
press
happy to
is
hear that.
to our benefit.
Thank you.
Dr. Reed?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, with regards to the pathway again at Cleveland, having walked it, I know their fence was also falling apart, so I'm assuming that's part of the whole deal.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we will see that at the next agenda?
At the next agenda, I did not receive the proposal in time to make this agenda.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there are no further questions, is there some proposed action?
I move to approve the projects and priorities for Measure I, 2016, and Measures J, 2016.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Reed and seconded by Ms. Sims Moten. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hetjunk.
Thank you.
And Mr. Tate.
Might as well stay there.
Just stay, why not? All right, item F6, this is approval of Measure R 2010 funding for a campus-wide fire alarm system at McKinley Elementary School and approval of a proposal from Kruger Benson Ziemer Architects. Mr. Tate.
Mr. Hatyon.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, board members. As indicated, McKinley is one of our remaining schools that does not have a fully automated fire alarm system. They have a manual pull system, which meets current code for when the school was built, but does not meet the current code when you go in and touch a building. We will be doing projects at McKinley. The Vision Estate architect is going to require the fire alarm system to be upgraded at that time. We'd like to get it done now to help address any safety concerns that there may be in the future. I know they had an incident there, and not everybody knew that they had to manually pull the fire alarm. The new systems are fully addressable. They have smoke detectors, heat detectors, and the mass notification is all part of the new fire alarm code. So this will greatly enhance the school's safety, and there are remaining funds in Measure R that are available to cover this project, and we accomplished 2 other schools' fire alarms with Measure R, so it made sense to use Measure R funds for the third.
Any questions, board members?
Yeah.
Ms. Sims-Moton?
So is this the last of the schools that need this upgrade with regards to fire alarms, or are there
This
others?
is well, when we go out and do projects, the Division of State Architect may require us to enhance existing fire alarms, but this is the last school, to my knowledge, that has the manual pull stations rather than the automated heat detectors and smoke detectors.
Any other questions? I appreciate this because I know that we had parents at McKinley that were particularly concerned and didn't quite understand that the existing system met code. But regardless, it makes sense to make sure that this is up to date, especially because this is a school that we've had arson issues at. And I just wanted to touch base on that. I haven't heard anything in the past few months, at least. Has that stopped at
As
McKinley?
far as I know, it has stopped. I think I responded and got calls at the middle of the night from the police and fire department on 3 separate occasions where I responded, where they had actually, cut the lock, cut the chain to get in and fight the fire. And we wanted to secure that facility when they were complete. And I've not been contacted for a while now, so I don't know if the person was apprehended, whether the person has changed their habits, or what the current status is, but to my knowledge, we haven't had an incident in a while.
I think I'd appreciate it, we probably would all appreciate it if there was just a touch base with SBPD on that, see where that investigation is. With that, I do need approval of Measure R 2010 funding for a campus-wide fire alarm system at McKinley Elementary.
All right, I move to approve Measure R 210, funding for campus-wide fire alarm system at McKinley Elementary School.
And that yeah, okay, and that includes a proposal from Kruger Benson Zemer.
Yes.
Moved by Dr. Reed and seconded by Ms. Sims-Moton. All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Next up is F7, approval of Measure I 2016 funding for the swimming pool concrete deck replacement at San Marcos High School, and approval of proposal from Kruger Benson Zemer Architects. Ms. Shate, Mr. Hedyank.
Again, Mr. Matsuoka, members of the board, the concrete deck at the San Marcos High School swimming pool is starting to spall and delaminate. It has for some time. We've been able to do some patching, but it does need a total replacement. We looked at 3 different options, from a partial replacement to a full replacement, and I would hate to spend good money and come back and ask you again in a few years to spend money again. The most efficient way to accomplish this and have a high degree of feeling that we will be successful is to replace the whole concrete deck. It's a combination of the contractor overworking the contract, or overworking the surface when it was finished, and some aggregate that wasn't perfectly clean, that had some reactive ingredients to it where it reacted and started to spall. And so we're recommending that this be done this summer to minimize health issues with students' feet on a wet deck and getting them cut. And San Marcos has been asking us for some time to do something about it, and now we're able to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Hetyank. All right, board members, anybody besides myself have to look up the definition of spall?
Delaminating.
That helped, Mr. Hetyank. All right, Ms. Sims-Moton.
Yes, I just had a question with regards to, in your background, in your staff report, with regards to loaning or borrowing from Measure Q. Is that?
Yes. In other words, we're asking you to approve proposals for architects for design. I never intend to bring a proposal for the board to fund something without money in the bank. We do not yet have Measure I and J funds in the bank, but we do have Measure Q and R money. Hopefully, the expenditures will be minimal before the funds come into the district. The main cost is going to be the contractor costs, which we should have Measure I and J funds in at that time. If not, believe me, we'd be back to talk to you. But in case an invoice hits prior to the Measure I and J money being on deposit with the county treasury for the district, we want to make sure that there's money to pay that bill. So we would do an accounting entry to take and fund to pay that out of Measure Q, and then accounting journal entry to switch it back once the funds are on deposit within the district.
And just a comment, so I noticed in we were using some of the Measure R funds, that it said it had remaining $3 million. It doesn't state that how much is remaining in Measure Q. Is that just an oversight, or?
In excess of, I'd say probably approximately $5 million.
Yeah. Thank you.
I hate to quote numbers without them in front of me, but it's close to that amount.
Flashback there. F7, any other questions on this one? Then can I have a motion?
I move approval for Measure I 2016 funding for the swimming pool concrete deck replacement at San Marcos High School, and approval of proposal from Kruger Benson Zimmer Architects for the project.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Sims Moten and seconded by Mr. Ulloa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you don't get to go anywhere, do you?
Not yet.
Item F8, this is approval of Measure I 2016 funding for the playground and parking lot pavement renovation projects at Goleta Valley Junior High School, and approval of the proposal from Flowers and Associates for design and construction contract support. Mr. Hetjank.
Yes. Mr. Matsuoka, members of the board, again, this is a project that we would like to accomplish this summer, and in order to meet that timeline, we want to assign the design team as soon as possible. Flowers and Associates is familiar with the project and has given us a proposal, and I'm recommending approval of that proposal. It is for both the playground asphalt, the asphalt behind the multi-purpose little multi-purpose area, if you want to call it that, little square, concrete square out behind the locker rooms, and for the parking lot. And they are all in need of renovation, especially the playground asphalt.
Yeah. Any questions on this? Can I have a motion?
I motion to approve Measure I 2016 funding for the playground and parking lot pavement renovation projects at Goleta Valley Junior High School, and approval of the proposal from Flowers and Associates for design and construction contract support for the project.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Reed and seconded by Mr. Ulloa. I'm going to get this without hesitation at some point, maybe even by the end of tonight. All those in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. And that moves us to item F9, approval of Measure I 2016 funding for the playground pavement renovation project at La Cumbre Junior High School. And again, the approval of a proposal from Flowers and Associates for design and construction contract support. Mr. Hetjank.
Yes. Again, this is a project we would like to accomplish this summer, and getting the engineer assigned as soon as possible, we can get this project out to bid and accomplished. The playground asphalt at La Cumbre Junior High School is also in need of renovation, and this would include the playground along with some of the asphalt on what I'll call the north and south sides of the multi-purpose area of the shops and the boys and girls locker rooms.
Ms. Capps?
This is a more general question. I was hoping you could educate me. I know that La Cumbre is a very popular place in the summer for the free programs that exist there for kids. What happens when a playground is out of commission for a project like this?
Well, they would be unable to use it during the summertime. Principal Keynes is in favor of this project. It will allow them to once again be able to use that area efficiently during the school year for their physical education and other activities, and of course then every summer after that it would be available. But the time it takes to do this type of project,
Sure,
the summertime is basically the only time we can do it. Otherwise we're going to be doing it during the school year. So we're going to affect some programs one way or the other. it doesn't leave a lot of asphalt for them to use during the summertime.
Sure, I understand it has to happen at some point, but what do the kids get? Do they go to another campus, or is that too much detail at this level, at this stage?
If it's a city program, they could hold it on another campus. If it's something that is being done, well, at site, there's not very large, there's a concrete quad area, there is the eating area, this asphalt where we have the lunch tables for the elementary school, Santa Barbara Community Academy, and there is a little bit of asphalt between the parking lot and where this project will start. So there's some areas, but they're small.
Okay.
And so depending on how many different activities or how many students they want to participate in that activity at the same time, they may be able to be on campus, but they may have to split up into different groups.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Could I get a motion?
Approval of Measure I, 2016 funding for the playground pavement renovation project at La Cumbre Junior High School, and approval of the proposal from Flowers and Associates for design and construction contract support for the project.
I second.
That was Mr. Ulloa to make the motion and seconded by Ms. Capps. All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to item F10. Farewell, Mr. Hetyank, until next time. Adoption of Resolution 2016-17-28, a resolution of the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, Santa Barbara County, California, authorizing the issuance of Santa Barbara Unified School District, Santa Barbara County, California, election of 2016 general obligation bonds, Series A, and actions related thereto. Mr. Tay.
Thank you very much. So you've seen a lot of projects here tonight that total the total amount of the bonds. However, we will be selling bonds in 3 phases as it was described on the spreadsheet. And to sell those bonds, we have to have a resolution approved by the board. And I have David Kasnoka here from, he's our bond counsel, and he will go over the resolutions and explain why the resolutions.
Thank you, members of the board. I'm David Kasnoka from Stradling, Gilka, Carlson, and Roth. I thought it would be helpful to you if I divided my remarks into 2 sections. One, to summarize for you exactly what action is going to be taken by the board. And then once I do that, you might appreciate just putting that action into context of the larger picture of how we started and where we're going to end up funding these 2 bond measures, so that you can get a sense for the bond issuance process that the district's going to be going through during the course of the next month or 2. So the way Proposition 39 bonds are sold for districts who don't have a qualified interim report or negative certification is that by a single legislative act of the governing board, a resolution of your body authorizing the issuance of bonds is the only governmental step that's necessary towards the sale of bonds. So the resolution before you for the unified district, this resolution here, authorizes the issuance of up to $50 million of bonds. It also approves 2 other documents that are critical to the process of selling bonds. One of those documents is the form of preliminary official statement. That's the document that gets distributed once it's completed to investors. And when investors decide to make a decision to purchase your bonds, they do so based on the information in this document. This document is a big deal because a public agency has strict liability under the federal security laws for any misstatements or omissions of material facts regarding the district, the tax base, or the financial condition of the issuer of the bonds. So part of what Meg Jatay's duty and her staff is to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. We've prepared this document as your attorney, and we'll give an opinion that it complies with applicable federal laws, but a lot of the information that we get and rely upon comes from district staff. So it might be useful for you during the course of your review of these documents to glance through this book. It's not finalized yet. We're still collecting information, but it's in substantially final form. The resolution also approves this document called a bond purchase contract. So when you're ready to sell bonds, you enter into a contract with an investment banking firm who will buy all $50 million of the bonds from you. And this contract is the document that obligates them to purchase bonds from you at a certain price. And you agree to deliver bonds to them on a certain date and a certain time. So in this resolution, you're authorizing up to $50 million of bonds. You're authorizing the purchase contract to be signed so long as the compensation paid to the underwriter does not exceed 0.5% of the par amount of the bonds that are actually sold. That discount, it's called, likely to be a little less. But in the resolution, we delegate the authority from the board to the superintendent and the assistant superintendent to complete the transaction subject to those parameters, $50 million and compensation to the investment banking firm of not more than 0.5% of the par amount of the bonds. So the bonds that are being authorized to be sold are all current interest bonds. There's no capital appreciation bonds.
Mr. Herron would be very happy to hear that if he were here.
Okay, so that's the legislative act that's being taken, authorizing the sale of the bonds, approving two important documents, the purchase contract and the form of preliminary official statement. So do you have any questions about those specific materials? Otherwise, I'll sort of put this into a larger context for you.
Ms. Sims-Bowden?
Yeah, I just do have a question. We're under, I believe it's the purchase contract. So I've heard you speak about the 50 million, but there's 20 million aggregate principal amount. Can you speak to that or what that is?
Just remember, there's two resolutions that are before the board tonight. There's a resolution authorizing bonds of the Unified School District, Measure I. The maximum amount of bonds that you're authorizing for that, Measure I, is 50 million. The second resolution, which looks very similar to the first, but it governs the issuance of bonds by the district on behalf of the School Facility Improvement District, which is the old Santa Barbara Elementary District. That authorizes bonds up to $20 million. So you're authorizing $70 million of bonds on an aggregate basis, 20 million for the elementary school projects, and 50 million for the secondary and high school projects.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions at this point? One question I had was is there anything in here, because it's hard to find things, about the length of the term of the bonds, or is that something that's based on market conditions?
Well, sometimes it's based on market conditions, but I think we're assuming the bonds will have a 25-year maturity.
Assuming that it's not in here.
Well, no, it's not in here. What the law is the bond shall not exceed 40 years, but all the math that's been done as a condition proceeding towards the sale assumes 25 years.
Okay.
So when the preliminary official statement is actually finalized and mailed out to investors, if you looked on page 2, there's a blank maturity schedule. There'll be 25 years typed into that blank.
Okay.
And the $50 million and the $20 million respectively will be allocated among those 25 years on a preliminary basis, because bonds mature in each of those 25 years. So you're paying off principal each year of the 25 years that the bonds are outstanding. And those amounts, Erwin may speak to that in a minute, are determined closer to the time we're ready to sell bonds.
Great.
Okay, so now in context, the way that you monetize a bond measure is converting political action, which is the approval of measures I and J, into money. And the legal process to get that is to, 1, pass the bond measures, 2, adopt the resolutions that are before you today. And then 3, we have to prepare ourselves to offer the bonds to investors. And to do that, we have to complete the preliminary official statement, and we have to get a credit rating. So that's on the agenda for when Meg comes back from vacation. She and Carrie are going to come to San Francisco with your financial advisor and myself and make a presentation to Moody's and Standard & Poor's and present the district's financial and economic strengths. And the rating that you receive on the bond is important because The higher the rating, the lower the interest rates. So the rating agencies have 4 criteria: general district finances, reserve funds, ending fund balances, the local economy, the tax base, the debt burden that the consumers or taxpayers in the district are functioning under, and 20% of the rating is based on management. So management is the board, it's the cabinet, it's the relationship between the governing board and the senior cabinet officials. So 20% of the rating is, are you a well-run district? Do you have policies and procedures? Do you study problems, or do you just simply react instinctively as opposed to thoughtfully? So all those topics will be woven into a presentation that will take about an hour and a half. And after that's over, you'll have a rating. And with that rating and with a complete preliminary official statement, the bonds will go into the marketplace. The district is going to interview investment banking firms and select a firm or firms who will be asked to purchase the bonds directly from you. They will resell the bonds to, we call them widows and orphans, but they're institutional or retail investors. So in the past, the district has always worked with a particular firm, Piper Jaffray. This year, the district's decided to interview 6 or 7 different firms to get a fresh look and to be able to reevaluate that selection process based on the talents in the marketplace. So that's going to take place the 3rd week in February. So I think by the beginning of March, we're going to be ready to sell the bonds. So our goal is to get you money in April. That's our target date. So we're going to pass the resolutions, get a rating, sell the bonds, and then it takes us a couple of weeks after we sell the bonds to finalize all the documents. The cash that you receive is deposited in the county treasury. It's a legal requirement that that's what's done. The money will be invested in the county treasury pool. You will not be able to take it out of the county treasury except to spend the money for projects. So you'll draw the money out of the county treasury, pay the bills for the projects that you've approved. The county also levies the tax in an amount sufficient to pay the debt service on the bonds that have been sold. That tax appears on your property tax bills. You never touch the tax. They call that a lockbox because the tax revenues are locked in a box, unable to be interfered with by anyone. So the taxes are collected by the county. They're transferred to a paying agent, which would probably be U.S. Bank, and then transferred to the investors who have purchased the bonds. So that's basically how it works. So you'll get your 50 million, you'll get your 20 million, the bondholders will get their bonds. And if you want information about interest rates or what's happening in the bond market, your financial advisor is here who can answer those questions for you.
Any questions, board members, about things like interest rates right now? Ms. Sims-Moton?
Not necessarily the interest rate, but do we have or do we get a report as to where the county is investing those dollars?
Well, the county is going to put the money in the basic treasury pool, and public agencies receive reports, I don't know, monthly or quarterly from the county treasurer as to the return on the investments in the county treasury.
Yes, we get that quarterly, but I don't have a list of who they invest it with.
Okay.
Or if they do.
There's a statute that defines the scope. You can't invest in junk bonds. All public agency funds have to be invested in fairly conservative investments. It's all set forth in the statute.
Okay. And so, Meg, with regards to that report quarterly, so then you're going to report that back to the board when you get that quarterly earnings report from the county?
We get an interest rate amount, what it's paying on interest, but I can also find out where they're investing their funds.
Okay.
Dr. Reed?
I'm not sure if you can answer this, but obviously the rating is going to be crucial. I'm curious what our rating was in the past.
AA? Yeah, AA. So there's AAA is the highest. There's only a handful of K-12 districts that are AAA. Then there's AA plus, AA, AA minus, A plus, A. So there's 3 grades within Are we a pure double A?
I need to check on the SFID because that's our new district. But
Okay. So you're not likely to get to be AAA? Mostly you have to be a basic A district with a parcel tax, with high wealth indicators.
You have to be Montecito.
Yeah, Montecito, or, yeah, Beverly Hills.
Any other questions on this? I will say that, of course, when we, there's been such a spike in interest rates since the election. I am assuming that this is considered the right time to go ahead and jump into this, rather than waiting any further in the hopes of it might going down, if you would like to speak to that.
Before he speaks to that, I would say there's one other thing you should always remember, is that whenever you sell bonds, you can only do it because you have a reasonable expectation that all of the money can be spent within 3 years. So if you have projects shovel-ready, ready-to-go projects, that's when the time is right to sell bonds. And public agencies never get advised to chase interest rates, to sell bonds just because rates are low. You sell bonds when you have projects to do. So it looks like you're poised with projects ready to do, but you're going to be signing, the district will be signing a certificate that says, we reasonably expect to be able to spend these funds within 3 years of April 1st, 2017. So with that.
The other factor in that whole calculation is the inflation rate that we've built in the bond program. I think we put in 4% per year. So you really don't want to wait on selling bonds to time the market, because the cost of construction goes up 4% a year. So the sooner we get these projects in motion, the better off our taxpayers. Actually, we'll get more dollar value for our bond program the faster we get out into building.
Sure. I think everyone here has pretty much said what I was going to say. I think the other thing, when I was last in front of the board in May, when we were actually looking at the sizing of the bonds, we made certain assumptions as to the interest rates, for 2017. And as of this point, we're still below those interest rates. So in that sense, we're still in a pretty good spot, even though rates have run up.
How prescient.
And Erwin, all the math is done on the 25 years.
Right.
Current interest bonds.
Any further questions, Ms. Sims-Moten?
Yeah, so you had said that it has to be expended within 3 years. That doesn't necessarily mean that the project has to be completed in 3 years. Is that correct?
The word spent means cash out the door, not encumbered, not targeted for a project, not set aside with a project in mind, but cash out the door.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so this is about, F10 is a resolution for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. I was a little surprised to see that the measure name is not in the resolution anywhere, but of course it spells out completely what was in the bond, what was in the election, what was on the ballot, and that this is for the Santa Barbara Unified School District, meaning for the junior highs and the high schools. Can I get a motion to adopt Resolution 2016-17-28?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Sims-Moten and seconded by Ms. Capps. All those in favor? Aye. It passes unanimously. And then F11 is essentially the same, except for the School Facilities Improvement District, meaning it's for the elementary. And I noticed that the language in the cover says Santa Barbara Unified School District, because we are the board of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, but it is for the SFID.
It's because the Santa Barbara Unified School District is the legislative body that's authorized to issue bonds on behalf of the School Facility Improvement District, which is not a bond issuing entity in and of itself.
Great. So any questions? It looks pretty much the same. This is the $20 million. Can I get a motion to approve resolution 2016-17-29 then?
So moved.
Second.
And a second? Was there one, Ms. Sims-Moten? Okay. That was moved by Mr. Ulloa, seconded by Ms. Sims-Moten. All those in favor? Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally, on the action agenda, item F12, approval of classified job descriptions for senior electrician and senior painter. Mr. Torina.
Thank you, President Parker, school board members. A couple years ago in 2014-15, the district initiated a pathway of senior positions in all of our trades. Currently, we are still lacking a senior position in the electrician and painter positions. We recommend that the board approve the senior electrician and senior painter positions for inclusion to complete that increase of senior positions.
Any questions on this, board members? Can I get a motion to approve these job descriptions?
I move to approve the classified job descriptions, senior electrician and senior painter.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Reed, seconded by Ms. Sims Moten. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. Which moves us to the report discussion agenda item G1. First up is Santa Barbara Teachers Association Sunshine initial proposal to negotiate with Santa Barbara Unified School District successor agreement for implementation in the 2017-18 school year. Mr. Chirino.
Ms. Parker and board, this is in accordance with the collective bargaining statuses under which SBTA and the district negotiate. The SBTA intends to bring forth the proposal as indicated in the Sunshine Letter to bargain terms and conditions for the 2017-2018 school year.
Okay, so we don't take action on this. Any questions? This is a sort of a pro forma opener. Thank you very much. We will move to item G2. This is the Santa Barbara Unified School District Sunshine initial proposal to negotiate with SBTA successor agreement. What is different about this? In the sorry, the agenda item looks exactly the same.
SBUSD, is that as opposed to SBTA?
Okay, gotcha. There it is.
Is that
There's
the
the
difference?
Sunshine Letter. All right, I see it. All right. So, Mr. Trina.
So this is what we are proposing to negotiate with our SBTA. This is our proposal to them.
Great. And that's on the screen so members of the public can see the details. I'm feeling like I'm looking at the reverse.
Yeah, that's the SB.
Did you, yeah, that was the first one. Did you click on G2 at this point?
Yeah, that is G2. G1 was SBTA. Did they flip up?
Mine's the opposite. I don't know why. So
this should be ours to the union.
The G2.
G2.
Yeah, SBUSD.
So when you guys click on G2, you don't see a letter from Lisa Ann Minotto?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't.
Actually, Brian, scroll. Go the other way. Oh, it's just the one page.
We have a different attachment, just, and I think it was the one that was meant to go on G1. And so I think they got reversed, that you have both G2s, and I don't know why it would be different between what we're seeing and what you're seeing. But I think that we should correct that for the public record.
So what you're seeing is both from G1?
What I'm seeing on G2, I see the letter from Lisa Ann Minotto, which should have been connected to G1. And that was about sunshining, bargaining on Article 6, hours and conditions, and PLC participation, special area teacher PLC, et cetera.
Are you currently logged into Novus?
Yes.
Yeah, I just logged into the district public side of it, and it's correct.
Correct.
So we'll go back and follow up why the one that went out to the board is incorrect.
Okay.
But
great.
at least the public one's got the correct.
It's already
attachment.
correct. Okay, great, thanks. All right, so that is Sunshine. Any questions on it? Otherwise, we will move on to item G3. This is the discussion of CSEA Sunshine initial bargaining proposal for 2016-17. Mr. Chirino.
President Parker and Board, this is in accordance with Section 3547 of the EERA. Proposals of both employee organizations and management must be presented at 2 public meetings and approved before the negotiations takes place. This is CSEA's initial proposal for the 2016-17 bargaining is attached. I want to make sure that that's the correct one.
That looks right.
Yes, that is correct.
Any questions on this one? All right. And thank you. We look forward to bargaining with them.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item G4, discussion of Board Policy 5145.3 on non-discrimination harassment. First reading, Ms. Wageneck.
Good evening, Mr. Matsuoka, Ms. Parker, Board. I bring to you first reading of Board Policy 5145.3, non-discrimination and harassment. This is an update of current board policy, and you can see here most of this aligns with CSBA recommendations. I did make a few changes that I thought were applicable. If you go to, in the second paragraph, I just changed it to have a direct impact on or create. CSBA had that slightly different. And then if you'll go to the very end under record keeping, CSBA did not specifically recommend that these records be kept electronically, but I felt it important to that we maintain an electronic record via the students, the district student information system. So I included that in this first draft. So any questions?
Any questions or language changes from Ms. Wageneck? Just on that one point that you bring in, so was the CSBA language just maintain a record? Are you the one?
I can read that to you. It was, the superintendent or designee shall maintain a record of all reported cases of unlawful discrimination.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Capps?
Just a context question. Is this, why are we reviewing this policy now?
From time to time, CSBA does updates to either reflect the passage of new laws. They include better language sometimes to bring things kind of up to the times to make them more meaningful. So this is a reflection of that. There weren't any, the major changes on this one were really in regards to, they added the language, Brian, if you could scroll up, the language here more specifically about the complaints, and that aligns with laws around harassment and bullying and how those are handled. And then the other major change is in the second paragraph where it says, let's see, second paragraph, keep going all the way, yeah. And to acts which occur off-campus or outside school-related or school-sponsored activities, but which may have a direct impact. That actually came out of the electronic age that we're in. Mm-hmm. So when cell phones first came into being, it was really something we grappled with because we had to say, does it have a nexus to school? And what we were advised of at that time was, it doesn't have a nexus to school. These were two students who were texting while they were at home. Now this allows us to really look at those acts and see if they impact how students feel at school. And so when we're looking add a case of harassment and bullying, we can bring those incidences into consideration as well.
Thanks. So are there, just again, a process question, is there a regular review of these kinds of policies, or are they event-driven or combination?
We get a quarterly update, and it's interesting that you asked that, because we were talking in Cabinet today about we have a little backlog, and so we're really working to try to get caught up on those. But this was suggested, I'm trying to see when it was last updated, February 10th, 2015, so just about 2 years ago. So this is a kind of a regular update that we would get from CSBA.
Dr. Reed?
Yes, so do you inform the principals then of this new policy, and when does that happen? And then are there then rollout plans as to how to follow up with these situations?
So interestingly, a lot of times our practices precede policy because we see changes in the law, or we follow best practices, and then the policies get updated. If it's, there's nothing in here that is really a change to our practices at this time, with the exception of I will be talking to the administrators about remembering to record it in Aries, and also this piece about, is it at does it have a direct impact in the school? That's a conversation we need to have again, but there aren't any major changes in this policy here.
I would just,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Finish.
I would just say that would be something to really have a discussion about, because I have a feeling now that it's a new sort of, procedural, that you're putting forward, that the principals would have to have an understanding of how to negotiate that with parents and families. And I just think that it would be really good to have a plan in place with that new change.
Well, what I'm saying is this is already, the procedures, the practices already follow this. So we're not putting, even though we're codifying it in policy, in this instance, there's not going to be a change in practice. We already practice what we're asking you to put in policy. But I agree with you that reminders are constantly needed, so.
Ms. Moten?
Just also, not to add any more work, but as this is codifying the practice, maybe perhaps in a staff report letting us know what this is actually doing, as opposed to, is this new or why it's coming at this time, to give us a little bit of background on how we got where we are.
Sure.
Okay.
I will say that in general, since the process question has come up, that we've historically been a board for the past 10 years or so that's been really good about keeping our policies updated rather than letting them lag for decades sometimes, which you see with other boards. From time to time, we'll get there'll be a backlog, there'll be a large number to come through, and sometimes our board has had the practice of having a special meeting that is just looking at policy, so that it's not like lumped on top, because if you're really looking at a lot of language, it's not lumped on top of everything else. So I'll throw that out there, and if that comes up, I will ask you what your preference is, okay? But one or two at a time, I think we can handle. Okay.
So this would actually be a great time to ask your preference, because we just talked about it in Cabinet today. There is a backlog. It's in the triple digits, and we're going to focus on the 4,000s, 5,000s, 6,000s, because it's HR, students, and instruction. I mean, that's where our policies really need to be up to date. I've walked 2 different districts' boards through a complete overhaul of their board policy. It's not a complete overhaul, but there's quite a bit. We're going to test a system out with you around the 4,000s, so we're going to prep the HR set. It's going to be about 15 policies, just visually looking at it. We'll try to do it at a board meeting, and we're going to spread this out. If it just pushes our board meetings really long, we can talk about a special board meeting or a study session. We just have to be efficient. We'll send it out. My preference is to get it out to like 3 to 4 weeks before it hits a board meeting. Because if you get it, you can't read it Friday night, getting it posted, and then be ready Tuesday. So we'll get it out in advance, and then we'll just monitor how fast we can go. But we've got some catch-up to do. Be great if we got those 3 series cleaned up by June 30th.
So is there a list of all the policies? Because when you say 4, 5, 6, what does that mean? I know they have some relative. I'm just trying to make them.
It is on the website, so if you go to the board section of sbunified.org, our policies are all listed there, and when he talks about like the 4,000 series, that's all to do with employees, personnel. 5,000 is students, and then 6,000 is instruction. So
Brian's bringing it up.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
So I would say that my personal preference is if we're going to be attacking policies, I don't mind doing it at a regular meeting, but I probably wouldn't want, if it's something like 15, I don't think I would want anything else on the report and discussion agenda, that it just be that, so that we can focus on that. Because otherwise, if there's other reports that we're looking at, it becomes too long and too much.
We'll pace it. I know that we're going to have to bring reports every board meeting, just because it's spring. So you and I will
work it out.
We'll work it out. I think we'll get the set out, and maybe on a given board meeting, we get through 5 of the policies, and then we just do the next 10 over the next meetings.
Yeah, if we could get the whole set at once, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so we're
I would just, this is intuitive, but I mean, if there's a policy that's begging for updating because of incidences, I mean, just the example of, our policy didn't really reflect latest technology. I mean, I would hope that could rise to the top rather than a pro forma sort of, you know what I mean? Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And that moves us on to item G5. This is a discussion of Board Bylaw 9250, remuneration, reimbursement, and other benefits. First reading, Mr. Matsuoka.
So this is one of those policies where we did need to update it. There was some specific language that needed to be caught up. The one that was noteworthy was the healthcare law, that dependents up to age 26 are eligible for benefit coverage. That may all change, who knows, but our old policy didn't actually refer to current law. So that was one example, and there were a couple other minor changes.
Any questions or comments on this new wording on Board Bylaw 9250? Right, if none, I would suggest that both BP 5145.3 and BB 9250 come back on the consent agenda. This brings us to item G6, the Local Control and Accountability Plan rubric. Mr. Matsuoka with his, he promises he's not going to go read each one of these slides.
I am not, and I hope you took my lead from the overview not to read all 152 pages. I really tried to find a synthesized version, but the stuff is so fresh and new. A few of us went to the workshops at CSBA. This was the group CCEE that actually, I went to it twice. The county is working on some better slide decks, so this will get better. But I felt like it was important for the board to be informed, because CDE may start posting these district and school results at any time. They actually told us at CSBA it was going to come out in December, but I've noticed that they make promises and then they're struggling to actually deliver. So we're going to look at just some key pages, and I'm going to give you a big picture before we dive into some of those pages. So Brian, if you could scroll us to page 34. The first big picture thing I want all of us to realize is that the old accountability system remember the API number? And we all were grilled on those numbers. We had district numbers, schools had APIs, and we were all compared, district to district, school to school. This is going to annoy certain people who love to compare. There is not going to be a single number measurement of school district performance or school-based performance, and that's a good thing. I appreciate the design that's gone into this new assessment system. So first thing to note, if you'll go, let's see, Brian, you'll just have to scroll until I say stop. There we go. Oh, back up. Actually, this will work. So instead of one member, API, there's actually going to be 11 measurements. So here's 7 that are considered to be statewide performance measures, and they're good. There's some that I'm curious how they're going to measure college and career readiness for a school district, for a high school. It's probably going to be a measure of A to G completion, career technical ed options, just various things. It's, you know, you can't actually measure every student's personal readiness for a career. So I am interested to see what they actually look at from a data standpoint. And then chronic absenteeism is not ready yet. And I'm sure that's going to be related to attendance, but they're probably going to look at long-term patterns. So those were 2 areas that they're not ready to actually give us those colored results.
I just jump in and ask then, are they going to release 5? What were the name of those?
Harvey balls.
Are they going to release 5 Harvey balls?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's 4 local indicators. Keep going, Brian. Oh, okay, these will work. So it's a bit misleading when they say local. I mean, I would say they're very, they're based on your local context. But it's still going to be measured by the state using some kind of data set. And that, I mean, I listened twice in those workshops, and it was not clear what they're going to grab to actually measure these 4 areas. But when this starts rolling out, we're going to have to pay attention to it. Now, these 4 are going to be measured with pretty much a simple binary, met or not met. You could also not meet it for 2 years, meaning, okay, you really got to figure this one out. But it's pretty much, are you meeting it or are you not meeting it? The other 7 is going to be represented by this little colored beach ball. The presenters called them Harvey balls. A lot of us were, I literally Googled what is a Harvey ball. It's actually, it's a visual that represents degree of completion towards a task. And so you're going to see it's a Harvey ball with 5 pie slices. And so blue is all 5 of the pie slices are colored in. And then I think the very worst one, red, is there's only 1/5 of the Harvey ball is colored in. So first big picture to realize, we're moving far away from a single number towards 11 indicators. Okay, now let's talk about these colors. And feel free to ask questions. Yes?
Just one real quick question. I just finished my thesis on parent engagement, so this one came out of my mind. So is it parent engagement as far as what the school district is doing to engage the parents, or is it just like how involved are the parents? Because it's one thing to offer like PTSA nights, you know, back to school, open houses, but it's another thing to have parents actually, you know, come to these things or, you know, join PTSA, et cetera.
I don't know how they're going to measure this yet.
Okay.
So there's a group of us, 6 of us, that are going to a county workshop, I think early February. So there's lots of things that I'm going to be listening for. And that's actually all those local indicators. I mean, I have questions about how they're going to evaluate all 4 of those for us. Yeah, but parent engagement's it's a great question. How will they measure it? And what do we have to pay attention to? Okay, so right here, pause here. So get used to these colors because this is what we're looking for. We're not going to be looking for that first API number. Remember those days when the test results and we'd all jump on the website? Well, now we're going to be looking for colors. And blue's great, green, very good, yellow's medium, and then orange and red. So it's going to be a measure of the growth or success of the work of a school district by colors. All right? And then the last part of this first section, what am I looking for? Oh, go back. Okay. Get to that 2-dimensional grid. I had to listen to this one twice. First time I heard it, I didn't quite get it. Second time, I got it. So we're going to see, remember those 7 state measurements? There's going to be a grid for each one. The first time out, there's just going to be 5 of them. Eventually, there'll be 7 of them. I remember I asked the presenter, are you going to give us 7 of these? He said, yes. So we're going to see a mark for every school is going to get a Harvey ball on, let's say it's attendance. Actually, let's say student achievement in ELA. You're going to get a Harvey ball placed somewhere in this 25-box grid that it's a convergence of 2 things, and we'll explain that when we get to the next section. So we got to explain this to our parents. We got to explain it to our principals. Everybody needs to understand this. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. But status is going to be your most recent test results, and change is comparing the results that you got this year against the results of the past year. All right, so it's status is what you get this year, and change is looking for the 2-year delta. How far did you grow? You could also go down. All right, and that leads you towards the red and the orange colors. So this first part, no API, 11 indicators, we've got colors, and now this last part, it's really going to measure growth or change. Now, let's just kind of think about where we've been over the last 10 years. We've been all graded against just a raw number, and for better or worse, it's too simplistic. I like the 11 indicators because it's a multiple measures look at the work of a school or a district. I also like that they're going to measure growth, because here's what's going to drive some people crazy. They can't compare us against, Ventura Unified. What you'd have to do is you literally would have to put all of these charts up on a wall and take a look at the colors across all the 11 indicators, or the 7. Now, somebody's going to figure out how to do that, and people will start comparing. But I hope people think about the growth instead of just, comparing and the raw outcomes.
So, Carrie. Yes, so with regards, and you don't have to go back, but those 7 state performance indicators, so are we already collecting that data to be able to look at that? So, for instance, do we have data about chronic absenteeism? It's not something we have to collect in a different way.
Yeah, all of this data is being collected through our SBAC assessments that we take every spring, through probably CBED's data, CalPAD's data, so it's Aries. It's all going up to Sacramento. It's just CDE still has to figure out those 2, college career readiness and chronic absenteeism. What data are they going to parse and interpret to get a color for us? Okay. Any other questions on this first part?
Well, I do want to point out, this is something that came up when we were at CSB for those of us that were at this particular presentation, and that is that when you look at the state indicators that they're going to be looking at, in the past, you could compare subgroups at this level by saying, for example, Latino students, this group had an API score, or, this socioeconomic level had an API score. And that does not exist. So there's an English learner section, but for example, if you have a non-socioeconomically disadvantaged student, you can go and look at the raw data for the state testing, but at this level, you cannot compare most demographic subgroups. And so there were districts that were quite concerned about this, because if you don't have, if you have a mixed band of demographics, that means you can only look big picture at certain groups of it, and certain data, and it's not everybody. So so parents of white students, for example, would not be able to look at this and have any sort of judgment about how white students did in our district, and you can't have a judgment about how Latino students do in our district. At this level, you can only look at English learners and then how all students are doing. So that's quite different and just something to be aware of, that it's a question mark that might come up.
I'm going to listen for if they're going to disaggregate by our large demographic groups. I thought there was a slide that where they
At the CSBA workshop, they said at this point, no. Maybe it's something that will come forward as this changes.
Now, we can always look at our SBAC results, you know, by our demographic groups. So we will continue to monitor that. Okay, so let's go to the second section, the last section. Brian, if you'll find slide 73. So this is the two-dimensional grid with colors. So here's where you want to be in the upper right. Okay, you want to be blue. And ideally, the very upper right corner is, I mean, that's the ultimate goal. And what does that upper corner represent? It means that your result of that current year status was very high, like you got great outcomes, 95% or greater in that measure, and that you grew a lot compared to last year. You grew 5%, which would be actually astounding growth. I think it's going to be hard to get to that upper right corner. Now, eventually, when you get things all figured out, when you're at 95%, you can't grow that fast. You know, it's you know, you're just running up against 100%. So eventually, what's going to happen is look at the value statements that's coming from the State Board of Ed. I really appreciate this. If you score very high and you declined by 1 to 5%, they're still saying you're blue. It's like you're good. Okay, you went backwards, but hey, if you're at 95%, we're not going to worry about it. If you were in the high range, now you start to see the different color patterns. So just look at, you know, obviously blue, when a district and an indicator or school gets to 95% or higher, chances are you're going to stay blue unless your performance of status starts to drop below 95%. So the middle column of change is declined or improved by less than 1%, essentially no change. And so there are so many permutations of this. I mean, it's just it's going to be very interesting data for our principals to look at their schools, and for us as a district to look at our district. These are complex statements about our outcomes, our growth, or our setbacks. But I think it's going to be good, but not easy to explain to, you know, a parent at first. But our community's going to need to understand this, because if they don't understand it, then they're not going to trust it. You know, they're not going to understand the outcomes for our schools and district. So I don't think it's going to be that hard to explain in person, but imagine sending this out as a parent communication and trying to communicate this. So we're really hoping that the state and our county offices of ed start developing, okay, here's how to explain this to your parents. Somebody's got to figure that stuff out. Now, our county office of ed's got some really good people. Again, I've heard the one local woman present one time, and she's excellent at translating this stuff so that the average person can understand. So I hope to get resources from the county. I would think that the state is going to give some resources, but they've delegated it to this organization, CCEE. And I've gone through their whole website. I haven't been able to find parent education tools yet. So, but they better figure it out soon, because there's like 1,000 school districts that have to explain this. So wanted you to be equipped with a first look at it. Once you understand it, it's actually a cool system.
And I will share that I know that the Santa Barbara County School Boards Association plans to have a presentation available for all board members on this, but I don't think it's going to be until April, and this is going to be out before then, and so we have to get ahead of it district by district. So any further questions on this? Because we'll certainly be hearing a lot more about it. My quick question is, how much of a heads up will the CDE give the districts before this information is released?
You know, my experience with them is they usually let us know a couple weeks before it goes public. We always get a chance to review the data privately, but then the turnaround time to public release is usually a week or less. I have not heard anything from CDE about they're ready to go public with school and district data. And I would think that we would get some messages about that. So I don't think it's coming out fast. We need to educate our principals about this, I think, our next leadership meeting.
Okay.
So.
All right, thank you. And that brings us to the end of the report discussion agenda. And thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, for keeping your promise. And that brings us to item H, returning to consent items designated for discussion. We did have one item that was pulled, and that was E12, approval of purchase order report for January 4th, 2017 through January 16, 2017. And Mr. Ulloa, you were the one that pulled that. Is there anything that you wanted to know about?
No, not know about, but just let you know that I did notice there was a line item for Future Leaders of America. I do sit on the board, so I just wanted.
You want a separate vote?
Yeah, separate
Okay.
vote for that.
All right, can we have a motion to approve the purchase order report for January 4th, 2017 through January 16, 2017?
So moved.
I second it.
Moved by Ms. Sims Moten and seconded by Dr. Reed. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Are you abstaining? He's like, I'll not on that one.
Abstain, sorry.
So that passed 4-0 with one abstention by Mr. Ulloa. And then that's it. So we can move on to coming events. Any coming events that we should know about, Mr. Matsuoka? I can't think of anything that's coming up immediately. All right, and future agenda items, anything pressing that board members need to have on a agenda soon? All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move with my board's permission to adjourn this meeting and point out that our next meeting is on Valentine's Day. We get to spend Valentine's Day together. That's special.
That's beautiful.
And we will see you then. Thank you.